Yes,
Yes, yes. Okay.
let's do it.
Well, hello again. I'm Kajar. I'm one of the longevity consultants in Paar, and this is the first webinar of our Paar Longevity Talks. And today we have Darya Haitoglu, an award-winning psychologist and relationship coach here. Thanks for joining us, Darya. It's really a great honor to have you here today. How are you?
Thank you. It's so good to see you and such a new way to
Me
connect.
too.
Who would have thought that we would be on Instagram, a doctor and
Yes.
psychologist, talking to each other about mental health? We probably would be with patients in the clinic, and now we're at home, each of us discussing how to help more people. I'm really happy to
Yes.
be here.
Great. Me too. So, as you mentioned and Darya mentioned, today we will talk about mental health, but not just because it's a trending topic, also to reflect on what has changed in our lives during the last year, how we cope with the life during pandemic, which factors affect our mental health, what we can do more to stay healthy. So it's been a year that we've been living with a pandemic, which is an extraordinary situation. And it has brought many challenges, stressful moments, uncertainty into our lives, but not only bad things. It also brought awareness in how we live, what we do with our lives, what we need to prioritize, what we do to the planet. And I truly believe that led to some change for many of us. For example, I work from home as same as many of us do these days. And it was challenging at the beginning if you're living with someone and don't have a big space, like you need to schedule your calls depending on the other's agenda, avoid the background noise. Also, I used to get distracted easily by many things at home, but now I have my routine and everything works smoothly most of the time. It also took a bit of time for me to adapt to the new ways of meeting, like Zoom or doing these Insta lives. But I found my way through this. But sometimes still I have those waves of emotions. Like one day is so pessimistic and negative, and I feel like there is no light at the end of the tunnel. But the other way, I wake up with a huge motivation. I feel like you got this, you're gonna keep healthy, you're doing, there is hope, numbers are going up, just be patient. So is it normal to have those waves, Daria? How do you feel? How has your life changed during the pandemic?
Oh, wow, it's a great question. So we go straight in. I think
Yeah.
there's a difference between a male a structured brain and the female brain in the sense that when you have a period, menstruation cycle, there is, as you
Mm-hmm.
know, there is this wave that goes into emotionality, into mental different states, and we have hormonal balances that are different depending on
Mm-hmm.
which side of cycle whether we're premenstruation cycle, whether we're in ovulation stage. And I think a lot of women underestimate how that affects their mood generally. Like for
Mm.
me, for example, it has always affected my mood, especially when I'm not on a contraceptive pill, when I have those natural cycles that are happening. Now, of course, under pandemic or under stress, I mean, pandemic is just an increased stress level on us. So what we experience is a new wave. It's like it's exacerbated, right? It's an extra
Mm-hmm.
stimuli that needs attention by our nervous system. And what we see outside, what we feel inside, is in connection all the time. So yes, there is this extra tsunami wave when we have. I mean, I've never lived with my family for so long together in a closed space. I mean, I love them, but sometimes I wish I had my own space, to go
Yeah.
into. And I think, and I've known the tools, and I'm a relationship coach and I'm a psychologist. So it's sometimes I feel it's like a shoemaker without shoes, and I'm like, hold on. So where are my tools? I have to read my own articles and books, right, to remind myself, because you see,
Yeah.
when we're not training, when we're not training that muscle, when we are relaxed, everything is fine. We're actually not learning much. We learn
Mm-hmm.
currently the most. This is actually one of the toughest, but also the most potent times for us to learn
Mm-hmm.
skills that will later will be useful when we become older, because our ability to process information will not be increasing. We are going to be aging, right?
Yeah.
Our prefrontal cortex will hold less information, will be more prone to this negative stimuli from the outside. So how do we train ourselves? How do we learn
Yeah.
tools and techniques that can help us? That's what I would like to discuss today, to make it very practical for people to stay on track. To, most people have either problems when they stay with their families, that they need to resolve conflict, or if they're on their own, they need help to feel more connected to other people, because they feel more depressed and lonely and disappointed with themselves, with life, etc. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a two sides of a spectrum. Anxiety
Yeah.
and depression, how do we help this kind
Yeah.
of moods conditions, and help these hormonal waves for women mostly, because men cope with this differently. They don't have menstruation cycle, and
Yeah.
they use their hormones like testosterone to combat, kind of fix problems, to kill the enemy, kind of thing. In their head it's much easier, because they can focus and they can get there. For a woman it's much more difficult. That's what I would like to focus on. I'm so glad that Judy Octon joined. And we've got also Evi Baka. Hello, everybody. Jordan, FM Karasaka, Joyful Hearty Living. Hello and welcome.
Yes, welcome all. So it's good that you mentioned this also like different for women and men as well, because we also emphasize in part to that concept of bio-individuality. We all have like different habits, different lifestyle, gender, age, genetic predisposition, and that actually affects everything. That completely affects what has a big effect on our health, like how we can change this, how we can improve our health. So everyone is different. We all have different ways of like coping with the pandemic, I assume, or the way that we feel about this. So I might have those ways in that day, but maybe you don't really get, or you don't really realize those ways. Of course, it depends on for women, especially that menstrual cycle as well. But it's not just about hormones too. It's also about the neurotransmitters, which we will talk about, like dopamine, serotonin, and how these affect our mental health. Even like what we eat affect those too. And from there, actually, I want to move onto something else, because this is something I recently realized, that especially with this third lockdown, I feel like I see this in myself and in my friends, the people around me, that we kind of feel more stressed. Like we all got affected by this in many different ways at many different levels. But recently, especially that because we're not able to socialize, we're not able to touch or hug our friends or the loved ones, it's getting a bit more challenging for most of us. And there is still some kind of uncertainty. And I feel like we created a collective fear and anxiety around that. So how does that affect our mental health? What's happening in our body and brain, and how can we cope with this?
Yes. Well, we can definitely talk about the negative effects of stress and the pandemic, and absolutely that's everywhere. What I would like to focus instead is using our brain and sharing these practical tools on how we can change the way how we think, the way how we feel, and what are the things that I use to help myself. So first of all, yes, there is a big shift in terms of our brain reaction, our hormonal state, but also neurotransmitters. And how do we activate? We use our imagination. You see, yes, there is a lockdown. I mean, I grew up in Siberia behind the Iron Curtain. We couldn't travel at all abroad. And for 20 almost years, I was stuck in the place where it was full of snow for 7 months out of the 12. So we didn't know anything else. But you see, the problem now in the developed world is that the expectations are much higher than the reality. And I think that's the formula we need to change. So once we lower the expectations for the external circumstances, and we lower expectations for ourselves, because we have limited ability in terms of acting out instead of just being, our reality can change, and we can use our imagination to our advantage. And actually, that's the thing that we had been almost putting on the on the side. We haven't used our imagination that much. We are so bombarded, overwhelmed with information, with stimuli from everything, and we have used that to enjoy life, which is great. But now it's a time that we can imagine things. Imagine being on the beach, imagine being swimming in the sea, imagine making love, imagine having an amazing sunny day if you're in the UK, imagine having an amazing health, imagine. So these imaginations, like Einstein said, are much more powerful than willpower. Is great when you have testosterone, when you want to achieve something, but currently there are circumstances that prevent us from achieving things, going out there, traveling. I mean, I was supposed to be in Siberia today. No, I can't be. That's why we're here. We have an ability to use our power of thought to create same neural connections as if it had happened, as if it was real. We have research that proves if we imagine or we remember positive things from our past or imaginary future that is positive, we are as if we were living that reality now. And that's a great thing. The research by Barbara Fredrickson, or we have Lubamirsky, Sonia, who have done research on this neuropsychology of happiness, or the positive psychology, why it's so popular. Because there is a potent research that says if we have, on average, 3, sometimes people have kind of equal ratio of positive and negative thoughts. The ideal scenario is that we have 5 positive thoughts on each negative. So, for example, do the audit of your thoughts today. I do that. I have my little enriched journal where I write approximate ratio that I have. And when I am out of balance, when I don't have 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative thoughts, then I start building up those positive thoughts by creating imaginary scenarios. I start thinking, oh, I'm this happy, calm, relaxed person. And even can be little things like having a cup of tea and having the thought to thank myself, to have a painless body, or to have a painless hour, or to have a painless day, to have a sunshine, to have a little connection with my son, with my mother, to call, to imagine touching. That everything changes the way how we feel, the way how we think. That's number 1 recipe for feeling good, is to increase your ratio of positive to negative interactions, even your thoughts.
That's great. And it just reminds me that that's a tool that we use hypnotherapy as well, especially in cognitive behavioral therapy, as you know, like imagine what would happen if you achieve that, or imagine what would happen if you have whatever is your goal. So like how you feel, what would change in your body, and imagining that, living it as if it's happening right now. Definitely changes the chemistry in your brain and in your body too. That's great. And also that reminds me the importance of being in the moment, because we sometimes caught up in these negative thoughts and worry, and like this will happen, oh, I didn't do this, or what will happen if I receive that call from that person. But if we just stop and realize what's happening around us, those 5 positive things, like you mentioned, I believe that would change a lot of things as well.
Yes, and we tend to think and speak more negatively. Generally, 7 times more prone to speak negatively than positive. So that's number 1. The second big thing is we are constantly in relation to people, and because we cannot touch, because we cannot be together, there's a lot of anxiety and frustration and tension, and a lot of miscommunication, a lot of aggravation of these emotions of feeling like I don't belong, I don't feel loved, I don't feel heard, I don't feel understood, I don't feel that I am cared for, etc. Because people just on that sympathetic amygdala hijack, sympathetic nervous system is on alert. So the second big thing that I always recommend, and it's a big one, it's a gift, is when you're in relation to somebody and you're having a conversation that can be uncomfortable, it can be a little bit tense, you start by repeating what the person said. Because by repeating, we create a buffer of time to process this information, to relax ourselves, and then respond in a better way. For example, when my husband says, okay, let's have a family meeting tonight, and I'm busy, I can't. So, there's a difference when I say, sorry, I can't, or no, it's not possible, versus When I say,
Yeah.
oh, I hear you want to have a meeting tonight. And then
Mm-hmm.
straight away, something magical happens in the mind of the perceiver. They feel understood, they feel heard, they feel that I'm there for them, that they feel that there is a genuine presence. And that's what we lack in most of our interactions. We just build up on this tension by talking quickly, and then that anxiety exacerbates. So by repeating will lower the anxiety level, will lower the stress
Mm-hmm.
level with children, with parents, with partners, with everybody. Just repeating. It's kind of a funny parroting technique, but it works
Yeah.
in neurolinguistic programming as well as research. I mean, Laurie Gordon, who did 50 years ago training with Virginia Satir, they created a training called PAIRS, PAIRS. It's one of
Mm-hmm.
the, well, researched, first of all, evidence-based training that helps relationship building. And one of the exercises called Fight for a Change, you actually have a fight by sharing your complaint, by first inviting the person, would you like to have a conversation about this? They say yes. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I would like to share a complaint with you. And you share a complaint, and the other person repeats that. And as soon as the
Mm.
person repeats, you say thank you. Then you say, okay, I would like to have that instead. The person repeats again. And that creates that beautiful buffer that we all need, that nourishing emotional mental buffer. It's almost like a mirror technique that, okay, we don't have somebody next to us to feel the smell them, maybe they're far, but when they
Mm-hmm.
repeat what we say, we feel heard automatically.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's quite useful and it's simple. I think we
Yes,
can
that's
all
number
implement
two.
this in daily
Yes,
life.
yes, so easy, but it's you need to put into practice. You see, people
Yeah,
know a lot these days, but they don't use the knowledge. They don't use the toolboxes. So I prefer to have fewer but more powerful tools. So the one, number
exactly.
one is the 5-to-1 ratio. Number two is this repeat. It's a kind of a
Mm-hmm.
parrot technique. And number three is hugs. I mean, we know from the research hugs give us more oxytocin. And when we
Yeah.
hug, we release that hormone, the hormone of trust, the hormone of also soothing hormone. And Virginia Satir used to say, the mother of family therapy, she said, we need 4 hugs a day to survive, 8 hugs a day to live a good life, and 12 hugs a day to thrive. So the question is, how many hugs do you get a day? And if you don't have people around you to hug yourself, hug your pets,
Yeah.
hug your trees, hug the whole simple motion of hugging. It gives that soothing touch. The connection is a sort of a funny thing. It's a connection of palms and body. And when you hug somebody, just stay there for longer, because that creates a chemistry that is so beautiful. That's like a cocktail of nourishing emotions for the body and mind and soul. And that's number 3 out of 3 most potent techniques to release stress, to get to the level of parasympathetic nervous system relaxed. I can see you, I
Yeah.
can connect with you. And again, even if I don't have somebody to hug now, I can imagine hugging. We don't do that,
Exactly.
right?
Yes, we
we
definitely
we
don't
can
do that.
we can imagine hugging somebody and create the same neural connections inside our brain and body. How
Yeah.
amazing is that?
It is great. I mean, even if you are just going for a daily walk in the park, you can just hug a tree.
Yes,
That
yes.
creates the same emotion as well, which I love and do quite often.
Yeah.
Ah, that's
Right.
amazing. And I want to touch on the sympathetic and parasympathetic system a little bit since you mentioned it, because now during our daily lives we are always on the go, like challenging with other things, and we're trying to get done everything on time. Now we have pandemic; it put maybe another layer of stress, and that activates our sympathetic system, which is a flight or fight mode, and it raises the cortisol and adrenaline level in our blood, and it kind of puts us into a vicious cycle because you're fighting more cortisol, more adrenaline, that you create more acidity, and then you're fighting more, you're trying to achieve more. But when we just stop, for example, if we do these 5 positive things, if we hug a loved one or ourselves, then we are activating the parasympathetic system, which basically tells our body to stop, rest, and digest. And that gives that smooth feeling of like happiness and relaxation. this is also something that we create by meditation or breathing techniques as well. Do you do meditation on a daily basis, or what would you
Yes,
recommend on that?
I used to do a lot more. I mean, now that I'm
Mm.
surrounded by my family all the time, I find it more difficult to meditate because I
Mm.
need space and I need time for that to be on my own. I mean, we are blessed to have some space, but most of the time I can hear them. I'm not in that very present moment. And what I find is that instead of just meditating or sort of zoning out, which is great. I mean, there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
research in mindfulness-based meditation and generally meditative practices. But the reality is we live in such high-paced world these
Yeah.
days that for me, what I find much more powerful is that when I connect with somebody and when I repeat what they said, this is a micro connection, like a meditative space where I can sense my peripheral vision gets activated, instead of focused. I can sense my eyelids sort of relax, my shoulders lower, they go down, and I start breathing more. That's a
Mm-hmm.
tiny change towards better. It can be a 2 millimeter now of change, but long term, it can give a lot more. And for example, there's kinesiology, when I hold something in my hand, and I taught this to our children, you can just feel how it feels. And, if you just breathe together with that thing or a fruit or, whatever you're going to eat before you eat it, just to
Mm-hmm.
connect mindfully and take maybe a couple of seconds of meditation, and then you eat.
Yeah.
The start is important. I think starting with the right morning routine, for me, it's always 10 minutes of exercise, aerobic
Mm-hmm.
exercise, 10 minutes of writing, of journaling, of positive things. I basically buffer myself for the day by writing all the amazing things about the world, myself, my family, the place I live in. And I always bring that perspective that, as a reference point. A lot of people say, well, yes, but I have this bad relationship, and the person, my partner, for example, he is engaged, he helps everybody, or he speaks and helps others but not me. And I say, well, let's change the frame of reference. And that's what I do with my journaling. I
Mm-hmm.
change frames
Yeah.
of reference. Sometimes I imagine I'm part of a harem, and then I'm thinking, okay, how can I invite my husband to be with me like the best woman? Or sometimes I imagine like I'm in the war zone. How lucky I am not to be in a war zone. It changes the
Mm-hmm.
point of reference. I'm thinking, wow, it's amazing that I have clean water to drink. It's amazing that I have electricity that's warm. And sometimes, again, lowering the expectations, helping to enjoy and juice the reality we live in. Although the
Yeah.
reality is hard. I mean, my heart is with children who suffer, the abuse and violence at home, all the people who suffer financially. I think this is pandemic for me. It's a mental health pandemic rather than just
Mm.
physical. For me, that is the most challenging bit. How do we help? How do we help ourselves? It's by
Mm-hmm.
micro meditative moments, the way we start the day, the way we start a conversation. Always start a conversation with a positive gratitude. Our one of our children comes and say, "Oh, and I say, no, no, no. Say something nice about your brother first. Say
Yeah.
something nice. Nothing. He's bad. No, no, no. You need to find. Don't come to me first." And then they've learned. They come with a positive, and then the negative shrinks itself. It's like
Yeah.
that. Change of reference. So when I write 10 minutes, I just write positive things. Sometimes it's important to empty the jug with negative. Sometimes we need
Mm-hmm.
to have emotional shower by inviting our partner and say, can I vent? Can I share my negative thoughts? That's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
If the partner agrees and they say, yes, absolutely. Just please do, empty your emotional jug. Then I empty my jug. I thank my partner. I thank, or my therapist, my coach. I thank them, and then I feel, oh, okay, I'm empty now. Now I can put something more nutritious, better
Yeah.
thoughts, better ideas, better food, better decisions. This is a moment of the micro meditative moment that I'm after these days. Nothing big, no thinking like I'm going to meditate for an hour. These days are gone for me. I don't have that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about, a few seconds of meditation. A few minutes
Yeah,
is already a luxury. So if we can achieve a few seconds very often, our brain will thank us. It will help the body, and the body will help the brain. So that's my recipe,
definitely.
is going
Yeah.
small. Oh, Carol Holcomb joined and Sunita Pasi. I'm so happy. Okay, we have a few more minutes. Esme,
Yes.
anything else you'd like to share?
Yes. I just want to touch base on about what we eat as well, because I think it's quite important since you mentioned when I say what we eat, I describe the food also like the air we breathe in, the water we drink, the relationships we are in. It's not only the food on our plate. Actually, we have a definition like primary food and secondary food. Primary food is the fundamentals of our health, like our relationships, yes, what we eat as well, but also how much exercise we do, how much time we have for ourselves, especially self-care. That is quite important. But if we focus on the nutrition part, like, okay, we will do these practices, we will practice meditation, couple of seconds, even if that is, and we will focus on those positive ideas and imagine that good things are happening, imagine that we're loving, we are hugging the loved ones. It's also important what we put in our body as well, because we are what we eat, and that really affects our mental health and what's happening in our brain too, because we have a huge gut-brain connection. And so that brings us to the gut flora microbiome we have. I just want to shortly touch base on that, because those beneficial bacteria help us to feel good. They help us to produce the serotonin and dopamine, which is quite have a close relationship with our happiness. Serotonin usually known as a happiness hormone, and dopamine helps us to get pleasure from the things we achieve or the things happening in our lives. So if we feed those bacteria with the natural organic food, fresh food, eating more like green leafy vegetables, then they thrive and we get more of these substances, which basically helps us to stay healthy. And during these times that our eating habits might have been affected, I see that in some research also shows that people might be prone to eating more processed food or binge eating or maybe consuming more alcohol some days. But I think it's always good to stop, pause, reflect on what we're doing, having those couple of moments or seconds with ourselves, realizing that how that's affecting our system, and then again going back to healthy habits. It's like you said, it's about practicing, even if it's just a couple of seconds or moments. If you are able to just stop and reflect on what's happening in our life, then maybe give a hug to yourself, think about the positive things happening, and then have a nice salad or whatever your favorite food is. And I think that would really help with coping the current situation.
Yes, we are what we eat, and we are what we think as well, right? So we are all
Exactly.
connected. The body, mind, the gut, in our digestive system. I'm so happy. Elevated Mindset joined. Abby or Michelle, Andy, Imanda, Elena, Ivanova. Hello, Irina, Punit Nanji. Wellness curated. So good. Deora, thank you for joining. There's so many amazing tools out there. I think being curious to find out more about yourself, right? Like if you
Mm-hmm.
feel great, nothing to change. But if you start deteriorating, the health is the first signal. It's the first alarm bell when we notice we have to do something about our health, because then we cannot live a happy life. When my father used to say, health and education, the most important. You first need to fix your health, and you learn about yourself,
Yes.
how to feel happy. There are so many different techniques. Finding the right recipe for yourself. So there's some basics. As you said, nutrition is a must. How do you
Mm-hmm.
have your healthy gut bacteria, your healthy system, endocrine system, immune system, blood system? I mean, all of the systems are connected. So the ideal state is have no medication. So what do you need to have everything from the fruit and veg and from the natural kingdom to consume? How do you exercise? Of course, I mean, it's basics, but it's so important. Currently, for example, I find myself, I have no energy to do exercises like I used to. But again, habits, they work better than our decisions. Habits are autonomic decisions that have been made already by us a long time ago, and we do it automatically. So it's a strategic choice, right? So creating a healthy habit, be it 5 minutes of exercise per day, it's going to help long term when we are late in our life, into our age. It will help because then our all internal systems will be prone to have this little exercise dose of vitamins, of the flushing of the toxins, flushing out all the negative cortisol and adrenaline hormones of stress, and bringing in endorphins, bringing in dopamine and serotonin, balancing this out and having a great health, brain and gut health. And of course, watching the thoughts, as I said, 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative, it's a must. Then having a healthy relationship by repeating what the other person said before reacting. So creating this responsive, mindful communication. It's a very good technique, very easy, but it needs practice. And then having a sense of connectedness, because we are social beings prone to connection. If we don't have enough connection, creating one by illusion, by imagining. Remember being a kid and you had an imaginary friend. I'm sure everybody had one. Why? Because that is an intimacy sign. It's a connection with the internal world. And we can create through this amazing technology, through Zoom, through Skype, any technology, to connect with people as if they were real with us now in the room, and making a step towards better, even small step, mindful step of a few seconds of meditative holding breath, holding something dear to your heart before you eat, instead of like chopping it and chunking it out, but just connecting to those elements of what we eat, how we say things, and who we are in connection with. And if we are by ourselves, it's a great opportunity to train our brain with those mindful techniques by imagining positive things, imagine positive future.
Exactly. Everything starts with us, within us. So I think practicing these tools with yourself first would be a great step towards it.
Yes, yes. And I'm so happy that so many people are going to watch this in recording. And I would love to know which tools work for everybody, because we don't share enough what works for us. So what works for me is, again, tool number one is watching my own thoughts. How many do I have them? Positive, how many negative? If I have a ratio 5 positive to 1 negative, it's a great scientifically proven researched method of keeping myself sane, happy, active, motivated, and energized. The second that works for me is in relation to the other person, is repeating what they say. So if you tell me your concern or your worry or wish, and I just say or I ignore or contradict, this creates a conflict, a tension. So instead of that, I just repeat what you say or what my partner says, and then that creates a connection in relationship. And the third thing is hugging as much as possible, ourselves, everybody, anything. It's that unusual self-hug that we need to exercise. And I think our time is up.
Yes, that's great. Actually, if you have time, now we have now great 3 tools to cope with these. If you have time, I would like to do it quick meditation with you, if that's possible. I think all of our participants would enjoy that too. Sure.
Well, there are a few actually of meditations. There are so many apps out there. So the Calm and the I've tried the different podcasts, or even on YouTube when I Google meditation music. I find it very relaxing to hear natural sounds or meditative music, because it lowers the anxiety and the vibration. Just the energy is different afterwards. But what I generally like, it's going to be a couple of minutes meditation, is to put your feet on the ground
Mm-hmm.
And find a position that is comfortable in your chair. And if you feel comfortable, take a few deep breaths. And you can close your eyes by lowering your eyelids slowly. And as soon as you lower your eyelids, I hope you're not driving, then you cannot do this meditation. Just sit in your chair in your home. Open a little bit your jaw and put your tongue flat down. When we relax, especially the back of our tongue, we send that signal to our parasympathetic nervous system to relax even more. And in that position, take a few deep breaths and out and on your own. And with each breath, imagine through your feet a golden light from the center of the earth entering your feet, your ankles, your knees, your hips, and filling your body with golden warm energy. Every cell, just notice relaxing as you breathe. You imagine you're filling your body with warm light, golden energy. Your shoulders are relaxed, your neck, your head. Imagine your top of your head is connected through the invisible cord to the higher version of you that is much more relaxed, connected, loved, happy, and everything that you already want is inside that version of you. And just notice how you feel being inside that version of you and the center of the earth, connecting through that golden invisible light through your feet. Open your palms up and just relax even more. The jaw, your tongue, the back of your tongue, your eyelids, even your ears and your shoulders, your neck. Just notice what happens when you relax a little bit more and you deep breathe into each cell, each organ of your body is smiling on the inside, sending love in return and thanking each part of your body for working compassionately, tirelessly, every day to allow you to live, to breathe, to walk, to drink, to eat, to live your life and to work and to do what you're passionate about. Just notice how you feel in this state. And as you gather your energy in your heart area, imagine expanding your heart with compassion, with light. Imagining somebody who suffers and giving that loving energy and soothing them in your brain, in your mind, just helping someone in need, giving shelter to homeless, giving food to the hungry, hugging those who are lonely, just giving light and energy to those in need. And with each breath, feel how you feel becoming lighter, brighter, and more peaceful version of you. And you can slowly open your eyes and notice how you feel now in comparison to when you started this exercise. That's what we call centering or small meditation.
That
I'm
was
so
great.
happy to see Elena and Yana Kataeva. So good to see you. And Anaiman. Thank you for joining, everybody. It was a short and hopefully effective conversation. You can watch it in the recording and let us know which tools work for you to release stress, anxiety, and feel in better mental health as well as in your guts. Thank you, Dr. Ezgi. It was lovely.
Thank you, Darya. It was really great to see you. I really enjoyed the short meditation at the end as well. And I will give a big hug to myself and sending one to you.
Yes,
Thank you for
yes.
joining.
Lots of love, lots of hugs, and take care, everybody. Bye.
You too. Bye bye.